Natasha Winston Clark, and welcome back to our NSC study break. I'm here with Dr. Bird from Alabama State University. She's a communications professor for public relations. If y'all know me, I'm a PR major. So, hey, Dr. Bird, tell us about yourself. Like your major, what school you went to, what university you work at, what do you teach, and how long have you been teaching?
Okay, that's a lot of questions rolled into one, Natasha, but I'm good. I'm Dr. Bird. Hey, everybody. I am a full professor at Alabama State University where I teach public relations. I teach also social media, and I also teach an entrepreneurship class in the department. And so I've been there for 12 years. I came to ASU right after I got my PhD from Howard University. And so that's just where I've been. And so just over the years, been doing things, teaching students, taking students on different trips, doing PRSSA, doing all kind of unique things around campus, bringing students to be a part of that, and just really enjoy what I do.
Okay, where are you from?
Okay, so I am from Maryland. I'm from the middle between DC and Baltimore. It's a little tiny area. It's called Severn. It's near Fort Meade, Maryland. And so that's where I'm from. And yeah, I'm way down in Alabama now. So it is what it is.
Oh, okay.
But it's nice and cheap. Its cost of living is really reasonable, and there's no snow. So I can live with that.
We can all live with that, especially now.
Yes.
No problem. Yes. So let's roll into our NSC questions real quick. So before ASU, have you ever heard of the National Student Exchange Program?
I think I vaguely heard about it some years back, but was I really familiar with it before you came? No, I was not.
Whoa, okay. So given that, I'm a student from New York City who came down to exchange for the year, what was your experience teaching NSC students?
Well, it's just been this one experience so far, but, I can say without a doubt, in one word, it's been outstanding. You were a lot of fun to have in class. You brought a unique experience. And as you know, I got my master's from City University of New York. So, you and I could talk about New York City and, my experience when I was there as a much younger person a long time ago. But still, we could reference some things that I could understand. You could talk to me about, your home, and I would know where certain things were. So that was fun. But I just think it was really good because it was the exposure and your experience that you brought to the students here. So that was one of the main things that I would say.
Oh, okay. So speaking on the communications majors, how would the NSC program be beneficial to communication students?
I think it would be awesome if we had students at our university branch out as well. Not NSC, but I was a part of something similar during my doctoral studies. The DC area has a consortium program among all the DC schools, universities and colleges, private and public. And so, for example, at Howard, they had some classes that I was interested in, but they didn't offer. So I went over to the University of Maryland at College Park for 1 year, kind of like you, and I took those classes there. So I think I say all that to say, I think these sort of experiences are really good because, again, it brings exposure. It allows you to meet other people outside of what you're normally used to maybe being around. And I think it just gives you some cultural awareness that maybe you may not have had before. So I think those things are critical. And I just think exposure to things outside of what, your everyday activities are always good.
Okay. So why would you, you kind of answered it too. Well, why would you encourage students on exchange? Oh, actually, no. Why would you encourage students on exchange to take one of your courses?
Well, I think one of the things that students have, some have come and shared with me, is they appreciate that I'm always trying to do something hands-on. So for example, I don't just sort of talk about, okay, here's, and I'll just show you this. This is the textbook that we're using this semester. So I won't just pick a theory out of this book. I'll actually, say, hey, learn about this concept, but hey, here's a final project that I want you to do that you can pull from this to tell me what you would do in this scenario. So I might give them like a crisis communication scenario. And I might say, tell me what you're going to do. And I said, and use at least 3 concepts from the book. So that means that you learned about this from maybe taking a quiz, maybe you're learning about the theory, the concept, but now you're actually applying it, because those are the things that if you do decide to go out, whether to work or to grad school, you will need to know how to do. So I think when students see the method to my madness, they appreciate that.
What we doing? Okay. So aside from coursework, what are some school traditions do you think NSC students should check out at Alabama State University?
Well, ASU, one of the things is we're HBCU, historically Black college and university. So there are definitely, some social things. We have, D9 fraternities and sororities, which are, and they have those on PWI campuses also, but it's a little bit of a different experience, when it's at an HBCU. They have different events on campus. The football season is always an exciting time. I think a lot of people always look forward to that. The classics, which really are fashion shows. I mean, and I'm sort of pressed to find out how many people actually sit and watch the game versus, go around, socializing and interacting with people while the game is going on. And you might stop and look at the game to see the score, but it's really a social family reunion type thing. So I just think culturally, you can walk away with, if you were to come to ASU, you definitely, hopefully, bond with your professors. I mean, there are definitely some professors that are open to that. And I think that you get smaller class sizes at HBCUs. And it's not just HBCUs, there's some smaller, small liberal arts colleges and universities that are also very small as well. But we do boast small student to teacher ratio, And I think just, like I said, just that interaction that you get, because I think a lot of people who desire to work at HBCUs like I did, which, this was my first choice when I came out of getting my doctorate, is you want to mentor people. You actually have that built into your DNA because somebody did it for you. So I think that those are some things that you get, from an Alabama State that you might not get somewhere else.
Ooh, okay. The HBCU was definitely fun. It was a life changer. I was like, oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It could be very different, but I think it's, like I said, I think we actually have something to offer, especially if you really want to learn about a specific culture that maybe you don't have much experience with, and you really want to know more than what you just see maybe in a museum or what you see on maybe a documentary or whatever. And I think right now with everything going on, the time is really right to highlight these universities.
Oh, definitely. Like, speaking on like the student to teacher ratio, that's actually very important, because especially going to a HBCU from PWI, it was easier to interact with all of you on the campus, especially like outside of campus. It was just walking distance wise. But I would definitely say at an HBCU, it was very more field and hands-on experience than textbook kind of work going on. So it's like,
yeah. And I don't know my students' names too. I mean, I never wanted to teach somewhere where a student was a number. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. So what are your favorite school traditions?
Okay, so definitely football season. That is just an exciting time to just see people you haven't seen in a long time. So I would say football season. What other traditions do we have? I always sort of look forward to the springtime when we kind of do connection day events for, potential high school students. We do it every semester, but I really like the one in the spring because it's starting to get warm again and, the birds are chirping, the days are longer. So I really like that. But those are kind of two traditions I would say that I really, really enjoy.
Oh, definitely. One of my favorite traditions when I got onto ASU campus is the calf on Wednesdays. When everybody just got up,
yeah.
I was like, I like this. Now I look like a weird if I try to do it up here.
Isn't Wednesdays that soul food on Wednesdays?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So I just, like I said, you just sort of you feel very welcomed, and you just feel kind of at home, I would say.
Definitely, definitely. And, why come back to your alma mater to teach?
Well, it's not for not having other offers. I did, but I think when it really boiled down to, and I will be very candid and share this, the chair of the department at the time when I was a student was someone that taught PR. So when I graduated, I stayed in touch. I nurtured that relationship, right? And so he sort of stayed in touch with me through my master's. And then when I went to get a PhD, so, and when the time came to apply for jobs, he said, I told you that if you ever wanted to come back, I have a job for you. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I don't want to come back to Alabama. I'm not an Alabama person, or, not from here. But I think when I started doing interviews, and I had some great interviews, and I got some good offers from some other places. But I think when you had just gone through the experience of getting a doctorate, which is not easy, I think I knew I wanted to go someplace that I had a connection to. I didn't want to go someplace that was brand new where I didn't know anybody. I think that really weighed on me. Mm-hmm. So when I looked through all my offers, I chose this one for a lot of reasons, but mainly because I knew I was going to have a supportive supervisor. I knew those things coming into it. So it was just so much more easy to say yes to ASU for so many reasons. I had friends that were back working at the university. So it was just like, oh, this is like going to my second home. Okay, no problem.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. And I've had some great students in the years I've been here. And I keep in touch with so many of them. And it's just nice to have that kind of bond. And again, I don't think that I really would have had that or been able to build that at a school where maybe I was teaching a class of 100 students.
Well, speaking on students, how do you adapt to the new sets of faces, personalities, students every year, actually?
Well, in our program, sort of as you kind of know, we're a smaller program. So you might have, let's say there's 4 PR classes. Well, the same person might teach 3 of them. So you get to know students really quickly. The first class, you get to know them quickly, but you also get to, really get to know them as they come back several times. So that part doesn't really bother me. It's just when maybe I have a student for one class and I just never see them again, but I understand why. Maybe they might be in a different concentration, just taking my class for a requirement. But with the PR students, I'm usually able to, I don't really run into those problems because I'm going to be seeing them often, whether it's for class or advising or student run organization.
Okay. And, to wrap up, what advice would you give NSC students coming to ASU?
Find somebody, professor. I would say find a couple of different people, but one in each group. So find a professor that you can bond with that will sort of take you under their wing, kind of like how we did. And I don't even think it was purposeful. We didn't really plan that. It just kind of organically happened because, I had talked to you about an opportunity and you just jumped on it and you did such a great job and we just clicked. So that was when I said, okay, I can ask her to work with me on more stuff. So all the stuff you've helped me with research. You've been my little research assistant on, working on some things like that. So, you've worked on flyers, you've done some creative things. So I think, first of all, my advice to a student with NSC, find a professor that you can bond with. And like I said, that will take you under their wing. Find another student, preferably one that's further along than you. That you feel like you respect, that, they're on the same page with you as far as your work ethic. Find that student and sort of use them as a peer guide. And I would say just immerse yourself in everything that school has to offer. Be positive. It may be some negative things that you experience, but try to focus on the things that are really going well. Because let's say you have a snag with the financial aid office. Well, the professor you bonded with and that has taken you under their wing, that can overshadow negativity. So I would say, like I said, try those tactics. And like I said, just be open to embracing all the experience because you're going to have some ebbs and flows in this process.
Very much. Like as an NSC student coming to ASU, I had to catch myself the first week, and I was like, okay, this is not my school. And once I noticed, I started like comparing. I was like, we gotta stop doing this, because if I don't stop doing it, then I'm not gonna have a good time. And I'm here for a year, so I have to switch it. So once I switched and became more open to like ASU campus traditions and how it worked, I was like, it's not bad. Got some downs, got some ups.
And it's apples and oranges. You know, HBCUs are different. They don't always get the same funding that other schools get. So there are challenges there. But I think one of the things that you will hear people say about HBCUs in general, not just ASU, is you can find people who really, really care. And that's, you'll find those really, really committed individuals. And you just have to find them. And like I said, we try to turn those negatives into positives. So, you know, that's what we want people who would come into this program to, we want them to have that kind of, long lasting experience. And also the final thing I would say is when you leave the program, when you go back to your home institution, share your story, share your story with your classmates. That can be a huge help into influencing them to join in NSC, and stay in touch with the people that you left, because for a lot of us, it's not just, well, okay, you were here for a year, okay, see you later, and never talk to you again. I'm like, no, I feel like I made a friend. So, stay involved, stay in touch.
Definitely. I'll be there in November.
Yeah, well, I know we will. I'm not even worried about that. I just, I'm saying for someone who maybe just comes and they're just there and they're soaking it up and then they leave, but they don't maintain that bond.
Definitely. And my last question to wrap up with you is, what advice would you give ASU students wanting to exchange to other schools?
First of all, I say do it. You're in a really amazing time in your life as a young person. So this is the time to do those things and explore those things. So number one, do apply and do it. If you're afraid because maybe you be around a culture you're not familiar with, or I don't care, do it in fear, because that's how you grow. Again, the same advice that I give students that will be coming through the NSC to us: be open, make friends, and I definitely think that if we don't have a big international student population here at ASU as do some other schools, but definitely meet and greet and get involved with international students at some of the larger schools that you may do the NSC to, because that can really broaden your global perspective. And that's important too, because the US is just one country in a big wide world. So you need that exposure. And again, the bonds, make sure that you maintain those bonds, because you don't know where those relationships will grow into.
Definitely. Especially going to ASU and realizing how small the international population was. I was like, what? Because I came from a school where our international population was really big, to the point where we had actually clubs for them, like a Caribbean club, African club. I was like, so I came to ASU, I was like, what population at?
Right. And you come from a city that's very diverse and international. So, and I come from an area where it's very diverse and lots of different nationalities, ethnicities, et cetera. So yeah, but that's how you grow. That's how you evolve as a person, is just getting exposure. That's the most important thing.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bird, for all of your answers. They were awesome. They were great. I'm happy to have interviewed you. Woo! Everyone, that's it.
Thank you for asking me to interview.
Oh, of course.
Yes, I appreciate it. This was cool.
No problem. So thank you to everyone who's watching the NSC video. It will be up later on YouTube and also out on NSC social media platforms: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Also check out nsc.org if you don't know what it is. nsc.org. And they have everything that I can explain to you. All right. Thank you, everyone. And see ya.